Good evening. Welcome to Community and Technology, where we connect the global community with news, information, and resources. Now, we hope to help improve your life. I'm Stu Reid. Here's my co-host, Dave Burstein. Hey, Dave.
Hey, what's the big news this week?
Well, the one story that really caught my attention right away was the story on a Neuralink, which is a company. Actually, the company is called it is called Neuralink. It's a Elon Musk company, and what they've done, Dave, is they have planted implants in the human brain, actually a chip, and it claims to be the first time that has been done. I know there have been other brain implants, but this is the first time a chip was implanted.
No, they're being cute.
Okay.
What he said is the first time this was done. There actually have been a number of studies over the last 5 years
Hmm.
working on epilepsy and Parkinson's and so on that have been doing similar. It is the most dramatic. It does have a heavy duty AI team behind it
Hmm.
that may be able to get something, but it's wonderful. Do you know what they're trying to do?
Well, the first product that they announced is something called telepathy, which enables the brain that has this implant to control limbs, to move body parts. And also, they're talking about that they'd be able to link the telepathy to devices, to control devices, I guess, electronic devices. And eventually they're talking about limbs and restoring sight and other, I guess, bodily functions, Dave, where you're impaired, whether it be through paralysis or some other impairment that basically got a workaround using AI, and this chip can send signals to various parts of your body and turn things on that otherwise did not work. Well, at least that's my understanding of it. What's your read?
We've been covering this story a lot for the last year
Mm-hmm.
because a whole lot has been happening that wasn't Elon Musk on it. Remember when we had the sample of the woman who now could speak, who
Yes.
hadn't been able to speak? That was using EEGs, electrodes that were placed on her head, not in it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been a lot of work. In particular, some of the deep learning stuff is becoming standard treatment in Parkinson's. And centers around the world have been working on this. The one thing I wanted to bring to the air is they are recruiting subjects.
Mm. Really?
Yep. They are looking for people who are willing to be experimented on, fully FDA approved, usual safety precautions, but still it's an experiment, who have no motion whatsoever in their arms and possibly no motion whatsoever, totally quadriplegic. And on the site of Neuralink, you can find the form to apply to be in the trial.
Wow.
So if you know anybody who corresponds to that, which
Mm-hmm.
includes people with ALS, what we used to call Lou Gehrig's uh, disease, uh, blah, 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 lateral sclerosis.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
That, that,
I,
that,
I
that-
would
that's a
consider it
huge
if I needed
breakthrough,
it.
Dave. I mean, to turn paralysis into actual functionality, that's tremendous.
Well, that's already been done.
Really?
Uh, yeah. In the lab,
Mm-hmm.
handful of experimental subjects, but and we brought this to the air a while back.
Yeah, but
You
bring it to the
can
real world, that's very different than in the lab.
absolutely, and Elon Musk is very early in the lab. This is their
Mm-hmm.
first human trial.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what's going on is that we now have enough power in the AI machines and technique and algorithms in AI to find patterns in brainwaves
Mm-hmm.
so that you can put electrodes on train somebody to think of a word, see what pattern comes out on an EEG-like reading, and translate that into words.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing I'm starting to see, I just saw a robot that didn't look like any robot I ever heard of. It resembled a large boot.
A boot, like something you wear in the snow. Boot.
Yeah, it went up about to the knee.
Mm-hmm.
It had a small motor in it, and it was designed and is being tested on people who have no nervous contact with their legs to help them walk.
Hmm.
Again, reading what the brain is thinking. It's a dark art. It's not close to production, but it is exciting.
Why you call it a dark art, Dave? What do you mean by that terminology?
It's not very well understood.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's yeah. At this point, it's
Probably a lot
you
of
know
trial and error.
there's 100 scientists around the world trying to figure it out now, and
Mm-hmm.
they've managed to make some of it work by trial and error.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you've ever known anyone that had any kind of paralysis, and I'm thinking of one friend in particular. He's gone now, but he was a high school All-American athlete, and tragic car accident, prom night, paralyzed him from the waist down. And he managed to become a wheelchair athlete despite that, because he had all his upper body function, and he was an incredible guy. But I spent a lot of time with him, hanging out with him, went to some competitions with him, and he still had that really competitive mentality in his head, Dave, even though his legs couldn't do what they used to be able to do, but he kind of translated that to the upper body. And I'm just thinking, his name was Gary Bertier. He's a all-American guy. Again, this is going back 30, 40 years. If he could have been able to regain the use of his limbs, I mean, that would have been such a miracle. I mean, I'm only saying that because I had some personal, relationship with him. I'm sure many folks out there in our audience have family members and loved ones that have, paralysis or impairment of limbs to some degree or another that know what I'm talking about. Um, that would be so tremendous. I remember, I'm taking it to music. I remember Frank Foster, uh, renowned jazz saxophonist, who's no longer with us. And used to hear him as a younger guy, incredible guy, played in the Count Basie band, did a lot of Count Basie arrangements. And then
Wasn't he down at the Vanguard for a few years?
yes, yeah, yeah,
He did the Monday night at the Vanguard.
yeah, yeah. But then he had a stroke and he lost the use of one of his arms, Dave. And I mean, he was so devastated. I remember seeing him at the Schomburg. They gave him a big award, and he was, he was very gracious, but he was also, I guess a little bit angry, and I don't blame him, about what had happened to him, and just so mournful of the fact that he could no longer ply his trade, something that he had done all his life, that he had been a master at, and lost the use of one arm, and then could no longer play the horn. So I'm just looking at people like that I've known. If when this technology evolved to the point where it really may work, it will really transform so many lives.
We've been bringing some things that seem to me almost like miracles to the air.
Mm-hmm.
Cures on cystic fibrosis, on sickle cell anemia,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a fair number of cures in different kinds of cancers. And this is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. And I keep going back to, I read the medical journals and things like that.
Yeah, I
So
know
I
you
see,
do. What's the latest? What's the latest with the AI in the medical field? I know we talked about some breakthroughs a couple of weeks ago. Again, sickle cell and some others, and cancer vaccine.
vaccines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before I do that, let me finish this thought.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that there are incredible things happening. And we've been bringing some to the air because important, and some of them can really change lives. So, what I'm constantly urging people to do is make sure you're connected with a good doctor or other health professional who is keeping up on what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you thought was true 4 years ago, if you were a first-rate doctor, may not be true anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So you want the people, usually tied into the university, who are keeping up on the newest, latest stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, one of the miracles of get out there, uh, the weight loss is working. The
Okay.
Ozempic is working.
Those new drugs that are the diabetes drugs, that's what you're talking
Diabetes drug that I was taking for my diabetes,
about? Mm-hmm.
and that and another diabetes drug which works on a different mechanism but has a similar effect, let me lose 100 pounds.
Wow.
And that probably extended my life significantly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all these things are happening. I remember, I'll go back to 1986 and 1987.
Mm-hmm.
This epicenter of the AIDS epidemic for the entire world was the west side of Manhattan in Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the middle of it. It was just starting to find. Now, 10 years later, 15 years later, AIDS is basically a curable disease. Well, not curable, but you can get to
Mm-hmm.
manage it so well that people are living to 60 and 70 and freaking out because they no longer can get disability and they have to find a job now.
Okay.
But so I happened to be walking through Columbia and I saw a sign that said, so, lectures on new advances in AIDS. And I was curious, so I walked into it. And that was the first work on something called aerosol pentamidine, which what was killing most of the people with AIDS was
Mm-hmm.
pneumocystis pneumonia. So we knew all the pneumonia. And it turned out that this drug, which had not really been used much in 30 years, you put it in an inhaler, inhaled it a couple of times a month, and you did not get pneumocystis.
Hmm.
That saved an awful lot of lives. And I brought it to the radio. I think I was the first non-medical report on it anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just an accident I came up. But the reason I brought that up is there was a group of physicians who all knew each other, got together at occasional events, shared the information. Remember, this is before people had the internet and email mostly. And we're finding the advances like pentamidine, and there are several others that came up. Acyclovir actually turned out to help a fair amount. And if you were seeing one of those physicians here in New York, there were about a dozen of them
Mm-hmm.
who were living in 86 and 87. And if you weren't connected, you were probably gone.
Mm.
Now, it was wonderful to see those successes. And it was a great time. And it was a remarkable community. Now, unfortunately, they didn't get to the next successes. And 2 and 3 years later, many people, including several of those doctors, died.
Mm-hmm.
But it did keep people alive a year, 2 years longer, which was remarkable
Mm-hmm.
and gave a
So,
lot of people
are there
hope.
any current breakthroughs? I know we talked about it in the last couple of weeks. Anything that you wanted to bring to the air that's currently going on in terms of AI generated healthcare solutions?
Well, let me bring what's interesting there, which is not going to help anybody particularly yet. But there is serious evidence that is convincing people like Eric Topol from Scripps, one of the most prominent physicians in the United States, that in many ways the AIs can do a better job of diagnosis than most physicians.
Hmm.
And I've looked at the studies. They're early, they're not definitive.
Hmm.
Some of them have, only 30 people, 30 physicians being tested against the AI, which isn't
Hmm.
a whole lot. But what yeah, what Topol was saying, he interviewed Jeff Hinman, who's called the godfather of AI because he produced so much of us. Uh, and he said that right now, Hinman made a really big mistake, and he said he made a mistake. About 7 years ago, he said that in 5 years, you won't need radiologists because our AI will be able to read the x-rays.
Hmm.
And he was maybe misquoted on some of it. That's what he thought. It's now 7 years from it.
Hmm.
And Topol, who's a major physician, talking to Hinman, were talking about how they thought they had reached that point. Not replacing radiologists, but they do a lot more than just take x-rays and CAT scan,
Hmm.
but good enough to doing as well and sometimes better than radiologists. A Harvard professor of medicine who actually had breast cancer did the study comparing AI reading mammographies against most physicians who read it,
Hmm.
and it was better. And there were two really dramatic ones that hit. This is not something that you're going to go out tomorrow and replace your physician. But since AI keeps getting better, we know where this is going to go.
Yeah, you're talking about the trend,
Yeah.
where it's going.
One of
Yeah.
them was they took some of the hardest problems doctors face. The New England Journal of Medicine, in every issue for 50 years, has been having a case records from the Massachusetts General Hospital of a difficult patient, a challenge to the doctors to figure out what the diagnosis was going to be.
Hmm.
Some people play Wordle, some people do crossword puzzles, and some physicians try to solve the diagnosis in the New England Journal. They took a slew of them, sent them to experienced physicians. I think the average was 9 years experience, and ChatGPT. Who do you think got more of them right? Not who. Which do
What?
you think got more of them right? That's one, and the other is it was an arbitrary example with actors playing patients because they weren't willing to put it to real patients.
Hmm.
But it's a standard thing they do in training physicians. How do you take a history? How do you make a diagnosis? And
Hmm.
there's a extensive protocols on how they train physicians on that.
Hmm.
Not merely did the AI do a better job than experienced physicians on this test, but it was able to do it showing empathy and kindness and care for the patients.
Really? No, that's a surprise. How did that happen? How'd that work?
It's not clear, but I have the transcripts. I'm going to
Hmm.
put them up as an article. Uh, the discussions were this patient is so and so. This patient, this patient's wife is likely to be enormously anxious about these results.
Hmm.
We found that discussing this in this way helped.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
Lots and lots of that. Now,
Hmm.
some of that was deliberately programmed, but a whole lot of that has just developed as the AIs working with now trillions of words worth of data are being trained towards intelligence, and they seem to be picking up some things like how to be sensitive to people's concerns, and in other tests, how to reason. This
Hmm.
is very controversial. It absolutely was not believed by almost anyone a year ago when I started studying this stuff.
Hmm.
But almost every week, I'm seeing some result in the medical stuff that is just astounding. It's getting better and better and better. Now, where is this going to be important? Well, I had an MRI read by the computer. There was also a radiologist. I go to Mount Sinai, I have some first-rate doctors. It's possible that an AI would have picked up something that my doctors didn't, but pretty unlikely. I have some really good doctors. But 4 billion people in this world have no doctors.
Mm.
In much of the earth, there are no physicians, or one for 250,000 people.
Jeez.
That's
Wow.
an actual number from somebody who was working in Africa. He was the only surgeon for 250,000 people in the province.
Mm.
And for them who have no physician, getting this out to the field to help them, which they can use on their mobile phones.
Mm-hmm.
And a third of the people in Africa now have mobile phones, and Africa is the poorest country. And
Continent.
3/4 of the people in India do. And India is also very poor. And there's lots of places where there's no medical care for practical purposes. Although the socialists in India did get some things out there. And getting these tools that you can take your mobile phone, have it take a picture of your rash, and give you a good idea of what to do or whether or not it's cancer is definitely doable today. And you're going to see a lot of that happening in the next 2 or 3 years, even in medicine, which is very reluctant to make any changes.
That is really some good news, and it's a good trend that we're seeing with AI. We got to take a break here, Dave, and when we come back, there's some other things happening in AI that are not so good that I just want to mention. Faking voices and deep fakes and where that's going and how law enforcement and families and others are attempting to deal with that.
And there was also a victory on something we've covered on this show. Amazon is selling millions of these Ring cameras that you set up by your doorbell and watch outside your door and maybe around your house and your yard. They're selling millions of them. They were giving the information to the police when they asked. And we'll tell them the second half how that has changed.
Yeah, that's good news indeed.
Catch you in a few minutes.
Yeah, okay, be right back.
At the break.
Okay, yeah, good idea. This is Community Technology with Dave Burstein and Stu Reid on WHCR 90.3 FM. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after a brief musical break. Okay, we're back. Community and Technology, Dave Burstein and Stu Reid on WHR 90.3. Before the break, Dave, you had mentioned a story about Amazon who has something called Ring technology. You see the commercials all over TV about their doorbells with cameras that notify the homeowners about intruders and things going on in their yards. And you have an update. I know historically, police departments have been grabbing data from Ring customers willy-nilly, but now there's been a breakthrough. What's up?
Yeah, it's actually more extreme than that. They actually have been police departments who have been encouraging all the people in their suburban town to put up Ring cameras so that they're covering all the streets in the town. And then Ring allows you to connect to your neighbors, and the police were getting it all.
Hmm.
We brought this to the air a while back, and this is the kind of thing we don't get many wins on. But Amazon decided that that was just too much,
Mm-hmm.
that we are surveillance capitalism, but we're not trying to be like China is. Yes, in China, they really do watch more than we do. And said they're not going to do it anymore. Police bring a warrant before they can get it. That was presumably a decision made at the very top of Amazon, and it's a gutsy one, and good for them.
All right, that's a victory for privacy. Yeah. Now, another story about this is more back to our AI conversation, Dave, and something about AI phone scam. And apparently, there was a family who got a phone call from their son, supposedly. The AI convinced them that it was their son, mimicked his voice, and tricked him into handing over cash for his supposed bail to get him out of jail. The parents were convinced.
Actually, they picked it up before they handed over the cash, but they were
Okay,
ready
well,
to
that's good.
go.
That's good.
And bringing it here to give you a sense of what you have to be afraid of now.
Mm-hmm.
At this point, I, with a $20 program, can take 90 seconds of you talking and absolutely perfectly reproduce your voice so that your parents would think it was you when you call.
Mm.
And a scam did this, got the voice of a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, teenager, young man, and called the parents and said, I need you. I'm in jail. This is my one phone call. I need you to get to my lawyer $15,000.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what finally tipped them off, but he was home all the time and safe.
Yeah, and apparently a fake public defender also called asking for the actual cash. And I mean, it's scary. Dave, I guess one of the things that, as a parent, you might want to think about, having key questions when you get phone calls in that kind of situation that an AI program wouldn't know about, some history, something between you and whoever the caller is that would verify, confirm who they are. Because I'm thinking we're going to be seeing and hearing more and more of these type of scams.
Did you see what happened at the New Hampshire election?
There were the robocalls, AI robocalls in the voice of Joe Biden telling people not to go to the polls and not to vote.
And they would give me 90 seconds of Joe Biden's voice,
Mm-hmm.
and I can reproduce using AI
Mm-hmm.
that voice. And that's the world we live in now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's there are all kinds of people who are saying you have to identify the AI, blah, 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 watermark.
Mm-hmm.
The pros think it's never going to work. And to the extent I know what I'm talking about there, I don't think it's going to work. So, your voice, Marilyn Monroe's voice, George Carlin's voice, Joe Biden's voice, and I'm deliberately picking ones that actually have been faked
Mm-hmm.
convincingly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other bit is we can do almost as well with pictures. Mid-Journey and Stable Diffusion, two inexpensive programs, can make something that you will swear was a photograph.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to really learn how to work it with prompting, and you may have to go through 18 tries before you get it quite right. But they can make a photo of your father no longer with you,
Mm-hmm.
dead 15 years. Pick a grainy photo and maybe the least little bit of voice and convincingly come out with your father. This is the state of the art. They can't do it in video much yet, not more than about 5 seconds. But a good, I sent Jenny, who's the artist in the family,
Mm-hmm.
some stuff on Mid-Journey, some samples somebody did. And at this point, besides being able to be photorealistic, Mid-Journey can be photorealistic to the different film stocks. It always used to be, if you were into photography, you get Agfa gave you one kind of image,
Yeah, I remember that. Remember that from
Burstein
the old
gave you
days. Yeah.
another,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
you can tell Mid-Journey, put this on Kodachrome.
What's the name of the program? What?
Program is Mid-Journey. I'm
MIT?
paying
MIT?
MID, as in the middle,
Okay.
Journey.
Okay.
Uh, it and another one called Stable Diffusion are generally considered the best, and I'm seeing the results coming out of it that are unreal.
Mm-hmm.
And so is the results coming from Unreal. There's a primary game engine. The two primary game engines that make most of the games that you play, and one is called the Unreal Engine.
Mm.
I just saw a stream, a mountain stream with rocks along the side
Mm-hmm.
that I would have sworn were real if I didn't know it had been created.
Mm.
And then the camera went along the screen into the valley and showed you there,
Mm-hmm.
looking absolutely perfect. It's
Wow.
not easy to get it right.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing to worry about, any singer's got to worry about this. Not merely are kids taking the popular singer and reproducing and producing new songs that sound like that singer's doing it. The head of Universal Music Group, the largest record company in the world, has been working with it, and he's able to reproduce his artist and said, I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I had to check it out to see what was going on.
Just had to
And
do it, huh?
the Hollywood agency is doing that with the A-list actors, spending built special studios. The actor goes in for a few hours. They literally have cameras that will take 1,500 shots from different angles.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole pile of very carefully preserved words, makes expressions like lifting an eyebrow,
Mm-hmm.
and so on, to be able to come up so that well, if there was a problem, as there is about to be, what's her name? What's his name? Travis something, the football
Travis
player?
Kelce and his girlfriend, the singer. What's her name? I wouldn't even know the singer if it weren't for the football guy, Dave. But there was some deep
We'll
fake
lose
with
for
her,
you even
right?
if I'm blocking on her name. But she is committed to doing a concert in Japan
Mm-hmm.
the night before the Super Bowl where he's going to
Hmm.
be playing. And they're having articles in the press. Can she hire a jet that can get her to the Super Bowl in time?
Hmm.
Well, they could put her up on screen for the last half hour of that concert. And if they did it well, nobody would know the difference.
You don't even have to be there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're doing that now. ABBA's doing that. ABBA now is like it's like the Rolling Stones. They're old. They're not popular singers
Yeah,
anymore.
Taylor Swift is a gal whose name we're blanking on. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing that happened to Taylor Swift, people were shocked, amazed. Twitter was swamped with pornographic pictures of Taylor Swift
Hmm.
because it's really easy now to take her face and put it on the body of a pornographic actress.
Hmm.
And if you're any good, you can take that, turn it into a three-dimensional object, which is what people were doing to create these games and videos and so on, and have Taylor Swift start dancing
Hmm.
without any clothes.
Oh my God.
Absolutely convinced. I haven't seen this. I haven't gone Tracy looking at it, but
Hmm.
I know the technology can do it.
Hmm.
And so many people did this that Twitter couldn't keep up taking them all down
Hmm.
and just prevented you from anybody, for any reason, searching on Taylor Swift.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it is, the voice is easy.
Hmm.
Pictures are absolutely doable, but it's still pretty hard and you really need to know how to do it.
Hmm.
But this stuff is changing so fast and
Hmm.
getting better so fast.
Hmm.
And one thing that's going to make it better, let me bring to the air here a story I'm about to break. According to one of the senior engineers at Google, who's working on their big models,
Hmm.
the cost of creating the model has come down by more than 90%.
Whoa. Wow.
So that you can make a plausible model for a few $1,000s, and for a few $1,000,000, you can make one heck of a big model. It
Hmm.
will even be better than the one that Apple is going to put on the next iPhone, which is going
Hmm.
to be really pretty good. And this is something that hasn't hit the press yet. I read the geeky stuff, and I
Hmm.
found the comment, and I knew
So
this is
Dave, what kind of breakthrough is this that they can reduce the cost by 90% and put these models? What is it, a coding algorithm? What's happening that
all of
makes
the
this possible?
above and then some.
Hmm.
Okay. I can actually give you the answer to that because I'm writing the article and I'm saying, well, this guy at Google did get that savings and the source is impeccable.
Hmm.
You couldn't do it and nobody else could do it because one, Google is that big
Hmm.
that they get Unreal Price and everything. Two, they're so big that they have made their own tensor processing chips. In fact, they're on their third generation now
Hmm.
that is designed exactly to do the kind of matrix algebra that is necessary to do the neural networks. Next, we're starting to get competition. NVIDIA was the only one, really the only good source of the chips that could do AI. They took their gaming chips that were designed to do every pixel on a screen incredibly fast, and it turned out that you're doing the same kind of math to do the AI calculations. And they got in it early. Nobody else had it. That has now changed.
Hmm.
AMD, who was their competitor for years in gaming chips, is now shipping in volume. Uh, there are Huawei in China is getting a fair number, although that's a state secret how many they're producing. But we know they're producing, and I just explained it to a reporter. And there are several others about to hit, including a Korean company working with Samsung. Samsung and TSMC, remember, are the biggest and best chip foundries in the world.
Hmm.
Uh, and so on. So there's now competition bringing down the price. But the key thing is, NVIDIA was the only one who had it. Everybody in the last year wanted to do AI. We're talking about Facebook ordering $10 billion worth of AI chips. So they could ask almost anything they wanted.
Hmm.
And they were, in fact, getting $50,000 a chip. the kind that Facebook just bought 300,000 of to kickstart their own AI, on a chip that, if it had been produced ordinarily, like their gaming chips, or on a chip that is not that much different than their $1,500 gaming chip. It doesn't cost that, maybe twice as expensive to produce, but not 15 times as expensive. So Google and Facebook and Microsoft all knew that NVIDIA was ripping them off big time, and now are making their own. So is Alibaba and Tencent in China, as well as Huawei, because this was classic capitalism. NVIDIA had a monopoly. They really milked it, and everybody saw the opportunity to come in against it. And we're now hitting the market. So you put all those things together, and yeah, he had the number there.
90% price reduction. Wow.
Yep. And no other, and people know it's coming down. And I was writing it had come down by half and would come down by half again. That's 75%. But he just turned around and said, we already have it down 90%. If you're as big as Google.
Yeah.
But that's making a difference. And that's going to make a difference in everything. It means, among other things, that there are now about 35 giant models that a year ago would cost over $100 million to produce.
Each.
And now, even if you're not Google, are being produced at a quarter of what that cost was. And yes, the algorithms have gotten much better too while we're at it. Anyway, I'm talking too much about AI. Please get us to another topic.
We're almost out of time, David. I just want to mention a story. Maybe we can talk about it more next week. But the Atlantic did a story about something they call techno-authoritarianism, which is basically talking about the mindset and the power and the clout of Silicon Valley. Twitter, Meta, Instagram, Google, Facebook, and
they're all greedy bastards, the people in charge of them. They're mostly somewhere between brilliant and genius. They are all driven incredibly, working 70 and 90 hours a week, and are sure they're right about everything.
And
of course they're not. And one of the things, they're calling them tyrannosauruses, is another word I'm hearing. One of the key people in this said, and he was impressed by the thoughts of the artistic movement known as Futurism, which came right after Picasso and Cubism, and said, we have to create the art of the future, and we have to do all these incredible things and throw away everything that was there before, because we can do better and we have to advance the technology. Quoted Manetti, key futurist. Manetti, a few years later, became a heavy-duty fascist. Not like we call them fascist.
No,
I mean,
like that Mussolini
in Italy and Mussolini. So that one of the key people in Silicon Valley, who's getting quoted a whole lot by people who should know better, actually was praising a real fascist. Okay.
The whole mindset, David, is technology at any cost. Let's keep it moving. The faster we can expand, the better. No sense of social consciousness or impact on society. I guess that the thinking is, it's a pursuit of scale and profit.
We made billions, so what we think is great has to be done even more. Don't give them any excuses. And frankly, they're all brilliant, hardworking people, like 100,000 other businessmen, and they were lucky to be in the right place at the right time.
But yes, they have been and are. But where they're driving us and society and the world is who knows. And you factor in what's going with the AI technology, it's a little disconcerting. But we're out of time, David. I'd like to talk about this some more next week because in many ways it's shaping our future and that of our kids and our grandkids.
And I'm reading from the people who are the real experts in this, the people running the companies, the scientists who are inventing it,
Mm-hmm.
and none of them are really sure what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
something that's never happened before, anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody is very aware of what we don't know. At least
Yeah.
anybody who's not anybody who's not egomaniacal businessman who has yes men surrounding him, which is Mark
Well, you
Zuckerberg.
just eliminated all the Silicon Valley folks.
Most of them,
Most of
not
them,
all
anyway.
of them,
Okay.
not all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's next week.
Yeah. Okay.
So long, folks.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. This has been Community and Technology with Dave Burstein and Stu Reid on WHCR 90.3 FM, the voice of Harlem, every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Tune in. Just might learn something.